1 minute early. Are we allowed to start?
Actually, still, we're good to go.
All right. we'll
Before
call
the
this
mics are on.
Meeting of the
Well, they actually
senior
are.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's fine. No, that's fine.
advisory committee's called to order. We'll do a little quick roll call. Sharon?
I'm here.
Everybody knows Sharon?
Nope,
Sharon?
Good morning,
quick intro.
Sharon Belfi.
I'm Jack.
Good to meet you, Jack.
We'll go around. Susan?
Yep.
Here.
I'm Dave. Richard Doyle? Absent. Julie Hughes? Absent. Patrick?
Yeah.
Nice to have you with us today. Even though you're wearing a Michigan State sweatshirt. That's Jack? And Nancy.
Present.
Good group. First item on the agenda is always petitions, proclamations, suggestions, or complaints. And we have a summary from Melissa first, and then we'll open it up if anybody wants to share.
Yeah, and actually, I will pass it right over to Dawn. I know she has something to share with us today, and then I'll take it back and showcase some of the events we have going on. But I'm going to pull up.
And I'm just going to say I'm Dawn Plummer from Carver County Public Health, and I usually attend these meetings just as a guest and bring updates. My role in public health is I run the Office of Aging, so I go to the different cities' commission meetings. And then some of my time is I work with the SHIP program, Statewide Health Improvement Partnership, which has funds to put on some programming. So what I have is a flyer that Alyssa posted. Move Mindfully is something that they have been promoting in the schools through the SHIP program for over a year. So it's just teaching kids to be mindful, take pauses, deep breaths, things like that. This Move Mindfully has created mind-body strategies for older adults. So I was able to get a small amount of SHIP funding, and we're going to pilot this in 2 different cities, Watertown and Norwood Young America. And so they're going to do an in-person introduction, do an hour-long session. And then after that, what the dates here is 5 virtual sessions. And so I'm just bringing this as an idea. What they're doing in Norwood Young American Watertown is these virtual sessions. They are going to host them at their community room, at their pavilion. So residents interested can come there and do it together as a group activity. Or if you're interested, you could do it at home in your living room or wherever. Since it is virtual and a Zoom, there's really no cap on attendance. So I'm bringing it to the other cities, the other commissions, to see if this is something that you want to host as a commission, as a city, maybe pick a place and have this and let people come. It doesn't start till January 24th, so there's plenty of planning time if interested.
And is it, so it's a 5-week session is the 24th of January, or there 5 different times that it's offered?
Yep, it's an every other Wednesday schedule.
Okay,
But you go to all 5.
yeah.
You can go to all 5, yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then after this, it hasn't been fully planned out because it won't happen until April, May, June, is once we offer these sessions, we want to do a training of the trainer in the county. So if you attend these sessions, you're really interested, you want to host for your building, for your community groups, you're a staff, you want to do this. So long-term, a training of the trainer. This is just an introduction. Are people interested? Is this something we can promote more in the county?
By older adults, are you setting a minimum age or anything like that?
No, it's more so they do it for school-age children in the schools, and then older adults is a little different
Okay.
activities. And then they have, so if you're like me and you go to a class and you really enjoy it, but the next week you want to do it and you don't remember what you did, they have posters and they have like a deck of cards, right? Yes. You're like, what was that? They have posters and a deck of cards that can be purchased once you become a trainer or you want to continue this. So yeah.
You know, with the levels of stress and anxiety, especially among young people, but even as older adults, this is a good idea. This is very much in need, I would say.
Yes, one of the SHIP strategies, they do change over time and they've brought in well-being. So just, yeah, well-being. As people, we need a little more of that in our lives, so.
Sure.
Did they change the curriculum a lot for seniors versus what they had in place for the school-age kids?
That I don't know because I've never actually participated in a session. So later this month, I'm going to participate in an ongoing group that they've had going for several years for older adults, just so I have a little more understanding. I think it's changed. They adapt, but I think the core is very similar
So
for the
this is-
younger kids and older adults.
This is a long ways ahead.
It
You're
is.
gonna remind us
Yeah. Yes.
closer,
Yes.
January when it starts? Yeah.
Yep.
Don, your other question was, do we want to offer this? Do we want to offer this in either that smaller room at the rec center or see if Lions Pavilion would be available? Is it something that we want to promote and
Yep. Exactly.
offer
Yep.
for the virtual, for the Zooms?
Yep.
So we could piggyback on these Zoom meetings and
Yep, you could say we're gonna host this at the pavilion, the time and date is set, you just need the equipment to have it shown virtually. No equipment needed, chairs for people to sit in is really
And
all.
access to the internet?
Yep, yep.
Alyssa, how would this fit into our plan?
That's a great question. I'll first say our rec center would be a great spot to host something like this. We have all the equipment, and I think if you've attended the Donuts in Victoria, that's a good example of a room that we could utilize, and you have all the technology within that space that could host something like this. We are going through and creating our winter program brochure right now, so if this is something the committee wants to do, we'll definitely let our parks team know. So then we can incorporate that into the winter brochure and advertise it on that as well. So I think for us on timing, this is perfect. Obviously, we'll have to look at Donuts in Victoria's schedule because they also happen on the third Wednesdays of every month. But since we're already way ahead of the game, we can look at offsetting donuts with this.
These are only half-hour sessions, 9:45 to 10:15. When do the donuts happen?
9 to 10 every third Wednesday.
So direct overlap.
Although
But like I
we're
said,
not on a third Wednesday, January is a fourth Wednesday. The 14th is a second Wednesday of February. The 28th is a fourth Wednesday.
Yeah, it looks like,
So we've stayed they're second and fourth.
yeah.
yeah.
And that room can, that,
Interfere.
no. And that room can hold around that table maybe 12 people, but there's more seating or,
Yeah, there's behind, remember we sat
yeah,
several times.
I kind of hate to endorse something I've never seen,
yeah.
but it's a really good topic. And
Yeah,
I'm trusting Don that it's a good program.
Okay.
Well, normally,
I know. They have an informational, like, 2-page flyer that I could send out, but yeah, it is hard to really talk about something you've never gone through yourself.
When does the new winter programming book come out?
The deadline's pretty soon, so I would say we'd want to make a recommendation today. And I think this is also hosted by Carver County as well, so we'll make sure that they are recognized for this effort through the brochure, and that we're co-hosting this as a city, as a committee.
I think it's a great idea.
I do too.
And so, do we need a motion or something, or can we just say we're in favor of doing this?
Thumbs up, head nods, a yes, all those work.
Great.
Yep.
thank you, Don.
I'm sure in the schools, every child has their fidgets that they bring to play with, you know, so maybe we should hand out fidgets.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know how to use one.
They're not hard.
You can learn, Jack, you can learn. You're not too old to learn this.
I don't know.
Anything else, Alyssa, from your side?
Just a few things, committee. We have our third session of the Medicare workshop that's coming up in a couple of days on November 9th. That's a Thursday, and that's going to be from 11 to noon. We've done this a couple different times in the city, and it seems to be very well attended. So I just wanted to make sure it's on everyone's radar and that we're promoting it throughout the community. We also have Donuts in Victoria, as we were just talking about, November 15th at 9 a.m. This topic's going to be Stump the Inspector with our building official and our building inspecting team. Scott McCarty will be there, just discussing on things related to how do you remodel your house? What does it look like for bringing in a permit? All those things you might have questions on if you're looking at doing anything to your home, and he's going to be the person to ask. So that's going to be a great one. I hope we have a good attendance. We also have another open house related to the Highway 5 Arboretum Area Transportation Plan project. This is specifically towards downtown west improvements and Highway 511 corridors. So that will also be on November 15th in the evening from 5 to 7, and it will be hosted here in council chambers at Victoria City Hall. And then last but not least, and we're a little early on this one, but I did want to get it on everyone's radar, is our Light Up Victoria event is going to be on December 7th at 6 p.m. It's 6 to 7, so it is a short event, but we have caroling, Santa, candy cans, hot chocolate, hot cider, and it is really the big event that lights up our community. We also are working with Len Olson. He is a community member in the city of Victoria, and he is hosting the Toys for Tots campaign. So you're going to see boxes at the rec center, as well as the other businesses in Victoria City Hall. So if you'd like to participate, there's more information on our city's website, specifically about the Toys for Tots campaign.
Alyssa, will this open house be similar to the one at the ARB in that there will be people to talk to and exhibits to look at, but it's not a presentation?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. And with that, that is all I have.
How about you committee members? Anything you want to bring to the group?
Yes, I have something I want to share, and I'm trying to find it. There's going to be a shredding event this Saturday from 9 till 11 at St. Victoria, but Len Olson will have a Toy for Tot collection there too. So it will be free, bring, what you want to shred. And I just thought I'd mention that.
What did you say the time was?
I think 9 till 11, but let me try to find it before the meeting's over, and then I'll have a little more.
And it's Saturday?
Either this Saturday or next. But yes,
Okay.
yeah. So I'll take a look.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Thanks, Susan. You can swing back before the meeting's over if you if you find the info. Moving on to approval of the minutes, is there a motion, please, to approve the October 2nd minutes?
I so move.
Jack, thank you. Is there a second?
Go ahead.
I second the motion.
Seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. It carries. And we'll move on to old business. Trail names. Alyssa.
Yes, we are back talking about our trail routes, specifically what we are going to call them moving forward. Last meeting, just as a recap, we went through our city policy relating to naming of parks and trails and other facilities, specifically discussing how we typically name our parks, trails, buildings, what have you. And the progress of this committee, or the purpose of the committee discussing this and how it's going to move forward. So again, just as another recap, as soon as we make a decision as a committee here, it will go to the Parks and Recreation Committee for that final review. And then they will make a suggestion from there if they have any recommendations, in addition to what we've presented to them. So with that, I'm going to pull up the staff report. And I do want to note that the policy is linked here. If anyone wants to recap that, we definitely can during this meeting. But the main piece of that policy is related to ensuring that any naming is related to a specific area or a specific person. I'm going to be really cognizant around those things when we're making those recommendations. But based on the last discussion, the committee asked staff to come back and present some potential ideas when it comes to naming routes. Things that we took in consideration when it came to this is the area around the community or around the trail area. So when we look at Trail 1 and 2, it was along the banks of 6 Mile Creek. So we wanted to ensure that we're placing that first and forward, that it's around that area. Another one that is specific around a specific place is Tamarack Trail, Route 7, ensuring that we're purposefully making recommendations that are based on the location. Some of the other ones, like Trail 5 and 6 fitness walks, is around the Victoria Recreation Center. It's primarily geared towards fitness, ensuring that you have an ability to walk certain areas quickly. There's not a whole lot of nature, scenery around these. You're mostly around these heavy traffic corridors like County Road 18, County Road 11. So we're really trying to gear on, you are going to this area hopefully to experience the outside while you're doing your exercises. And then kind of jumping into trails 8 and 12. 8 through 12 were really created as low mileage, low elevation, smaller trail routes, and hopefully have pavement, sidewalk, not necessarily a lot of gravel areas, but there could be. So really trying to identify some of those smaller trail routes. And at the last meeting, we discussed not really putting a term on them, something like age-friendly, I think is what we had at the last meeting. And we, as a committee, determined that's not necessarily the route we want to go. We want people to be able to utilize trails based on their own ability and their own desires and their own time constraints. So what we've decided as a staff and what we're recommending to you as a committee is lower impact, because that's really what those are geared towards. And then obviously we will market these similar to what we are marketing the trails 1 through 7. So people can just make their own determination on what best fits for them physically in time.
So, 2 things, I missed the last meeting, so this was probably discussed. The 4, why is that just not the Wasserman Trail, rather than views of Wasserman?
That's a great question. This was not discussed at the last meeting. So we do have a Wasserman Park, which does have a trail infrastructure within it.
Okay.
So as staff, when we were looking at this, when we were trying to avoid having it be specifically related to the exact park, although that would be a spot where people could park and walk alongside it. And then it's going on the south bank of Wasserman Lake and then through those neighborhoods.
And then for the lower impact routes, would they then be named? That lower impact 8, 9?
That was our idea on those. Instead of naming them individually, and I'll scroll.
Oh, there you go.
And could we
So if we
include,
look, it would just be trail, lower impact trail number 8,
Oh, okay.
and so on and so
I was
forth.
thinking of a parking place for cars. If people want to drive to the trail, that would be important for them to know as well.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great suggestion, Jack, and I'm gonna bring up our parks web pages. If you wouldn't mind just holding one moment. So what we've done over the last couple of months or so, if we've created individual park pages for each one of our parks in the city of Victoria. So I'm just gonna pick on Lake Ridge here. So if you are venturing into the city of Victoria, you're looking at what parks or possibly what trails you want to go to, you're able to navigate to these park pages and really identify what you're going to see when you get to this park. We're specifically targeting parents that might be looking for playground equipment of a specific age gap. We were looking at parking because a lot of our parks don't have a lot of parking. And just amenities overall. People might want to play basketball, but don't necessarily know where to play basketball in our city infrastructures. So what we did on these park pages, and the reason I'm showing this to you is I think we would mimic this for our trails, is we would have, or for our parks at least, we have all of our park amenities, we have our park facilities, but you also see, this is playground, what kind of parking it has, what neighborhood it's in, obviously address, and you can click on this map and it will actually appear in Google Maps. So if you're on your phone, it will pull it up on Google Maps, and if you're on your computer, it will pull it up on Google Maps there as well. But when it comes to our trails, I think we mimic this, where we put all this information that we've gathered over this last month and a half, whether it's parking, what kind of pavement or non-pavement, what kind of material, the ground is that you'll be walking on, whether it's gravel, sidewalk. I think we put elevation standards because we've been going around with our smart fitness watches and gathering that data as well. And anything else, whether it's shade, we talked a lot about that at one of our last meetings related to this. Any of those things that might help somebody make a determination on if this trail is something they're wanting to go and visit.
Great idea. And I saw up above under amenities, it mentioned benches, but, and, yeah.
Yeah, and if there's any of these, obviously facilities, we could include those on there. If there's any park connections, I think that would be a really good thing. I'm gonna specifically call out, well, I can pull it up on the screen, the one David did,
Noderman Park. Into the woods.
yes, you have multiple parks. You might start at Lions, but you're also gonna go past Savannah Valley Playground, as well as the Noderman Park. So I think having some of those connections within those pages so people know what they're getting into is really helpful.
Excuse me, one thing on the previous page, it didn't mention restrooms.
Yeah, seasonal,
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
seasonal porta.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that.
Yes,
Okay.
and it really is dependent on the park. So some parks definitely don't have restrooms. Obviously, this one has those seasonal porta potty units. So we try and include all those things on these pages, and I think we do the same thing for the trails.
And then would these link back to each other? So when you list the trails, it hooks up to, it would link to that trail when you're in a park. It says the trails, it would link back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, it's a great question too.
This just seems to beg a map to me that you could stick in your back pocket. It shows the trails and the parks, and maybe some legend with some of the information, like where parking is and restrooms and things like that. Is that part of the ultimate goal here?
Yeah, and thank you, Sue, for bringing that up. So we do have right now parks and trail guides, but our trails are really small in there. It just shows that broader view of all of our city infrastructure. So we have, 56 miles of sidewalk and trail, and it shows every single one of them in a dotted line, I believe. So I think something that we can do now that we have these trails identified, and now we're gonna get them named relatively soon, is include those on there, and really point out to people where these are, because as we were just talking, wellness is really important. And not only is it mental health, but also physical health. And those get really intertwined when we're talking about experiencing nature and being outside. So I think being able to promote these in multiple different ways, digitally, physically, when we talk about wayfinding too, people might just come across a sign and then they realize that there's a trail route there. I think those will all kind of get into bringing people awareness to this program.
Related question, signage? So if we name these, are we gonna put signs up so people know where the trailhead is or where it starts?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're going through and trying to revise our park signage right now. So I think the trails that start in a park area, that will be part of that. And then additional signage, sorry.
I was gonna say, so in addition to the park or the trail name, would it also have the distance?
Yeah, and that's,
People know what they're getting into?
yeah, and I think that's something for us to take a look at. Obviously, on staff side, we have our own thoughts of what we anticipate these trail signs to look like and have information related to. But difficulty is a big one.
Yeah, elevation.
Distance, elevation, I think are all really big. And then we've been really trying to bridge the gap between physical and digital spaces. So we're trying to utilize QR codes a lot more. So even including a QR code that links to a map, because I'm one of those people that I'll get lost if I don't know where I'm going or if I don't have one of these in front of me, because this is how I grew up. So being able to use a QR code and it brings us to one of these trail web pages, it shows all the amenities that are there. And then it also links to the map of where you need to go to.
One of the things I noticed when I was walking is light and darkness, and with the shade issue was there, but there's a couple trails that are close to where I live, and it's pitch dark out there. So I wouldn't want to go at times of day. I don't know, there's other ones that they're in a neighborhood where there's houses everywhere, it seems a lot easier. So that may be something to think about in terms of
Yeah,
light and darkness.
And I don't believe we've really talked or hit on that too much. And something I still owe the committee is talking about winter sidewalks, and we haven't gotten that data yet from our GIS system. But that's the anticipated next step too, is seeing what people can utilize in the winter. But we are getting darker. We just went through becoming back to standard time. So by the time I leave work now, it's going to be dark, and it's good for people to know what lighting may look like in those areas too.
Could you go back to the list of names that you have? Couple points. The one that's 6 Mile, it sounds like that's a 6 mile trail. I'm sure it's not, right?
It does.
It is
So-
not.
But if the signage is there,
Would 6 Mile Creek Trail?
That would be a lot
appropriate?
better, I think, than just say the 6 mile trail north and south, because I think I'm getting in for a long one.
I think the south one's pretty close to 4 miles, but we haven't hit the 6 mile yet. Yeah, we can
I
make those
personally like the
revisions.
ones that kind of tie to a location like Tamarack Lake, you know where that is? Through the valley, tough to know, views of Wasserman. But the fitness short and the fitness extended, for example, they're right by the rec center. So maybe adding rec center fitness. Or those lower impact routes, I think there's some interesting names you could have for those, if, or at least where they are, like what neighborhood they're in or something would be helpful.
I kind of agree with you on that, because to me, I mean, the names are nice, but they don't mean anything.
Yeah. Well, some of them do. If
Other
you know where
Tamarack,
Lake
yeah.
is, that would be helpful, or a 6 mile trail, maybe that's in,
but a description of the area might be more helpful, right?
yeah, like what neighborhood it's in,
Yeah.
or what part of the city. I don't know how you figure that out before you get a name that's 5 words long, but
Yeah, and something we also considered as staff, we were really struggling with some of these, just trying to find the proper names for some of them, but we really didn't want to necessarily copy names that we see in other park areas to avoid confusion. But we also didn't want to copy names of other areas just in general, especially when we came to neighborhoods. We didn't want a neighborhood to feel ownership or people to feel like they couldn't use a trail because this is a Lake Bridge trail. So only if you're in Lake Bridge neighborhood you can use that. We were just thinking through. We see that in a lot of our park systems where people take ownership of a park because it's named Rhapsody, so people feel like that's owned by the Rhapsody neighborhood. They're the only ones that can utilize that. So we were just trying to think, how do we avoid those things? We're still making it clear on where these things are. So obviously we can do some finessing on these. If we have any suggestions today, that would be amazing. But that's kind of where our thought process was as staff.
Do other cities name their trails? I mean, I walk on a lot of trails, and I never really
Pay attention to the
to the name.
trail.
I mean, or is that a common practice to name trails?
So I think there's two parts of this. If you have those longer trails, like regional trails, they tend to be named. If we look in our backyard here, we have the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail. There's the Green Trail and the Orange Trail that are part of the Carver County system. When it comes to these smaller trails, not necessarily. The only reason to name them, however, is to give some sort of placemaking when it comes to them. And so when people are, like if you go to Carver Park, you can say, I'm gonna go to the Acorn Trail, and you can walk that loop, and it just gives you a destination. That would be the only thought process of including names to these.
It was really a valid point and a good point that I guess we didn't think of about not associating with the neighborhood, because the parks, so.
I don't think anybody's gonna mistake that it's owned by the people in that neighborhood, so nobody else can walk there. I mean, that seems like just such a minor concern that's not worth dealing with,
I-
from my point of view.
But
And I will say on the park system side, we do get that quite often in our
Really?
in our
I was gonna say,
parks
I
and our
bet.
park
It's
shelters.
the Noterman Park, so other people can't go there? or it's the,
It's not necessarily notaring, because that one's not necessarily after a neighborhood, that's after a family.
Rhapsody Park is something that,
We do receive some of those, yeah.
no kidding.
I imagine it's by the Rhapsody residents
Yeah.
who are trying to exclude the other people, and they ask, what are you doing here?
Wow.
No
I mean,
kidding.
I've run into that.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh,
So we would just,
Just don't do that.
yeah, we're trying to avoid that, knowing that we've received complaints or issues with that in the past. Not that it happens often, but it does happen.
This may be a really dumb idea. I'm kind of half, but you know, there's a little passport system that the state parks have. If you hit all the state parks, you check them off, and you get this certificate or something. Might that be a little way to promote the trails as we come out?
That is
As we start publicizing this? If
Not-
somebody does all 9 of them or 11 of them or whatever.
That is not a bad idea, and we've actually already incorporated that with our playgrounds. So
You
that's
hit all the playgrounds?
yeah. So we do have a playground passport.
Playground passport. How about a
Yes,
trail
and you do
passport?
win a prize if you are able to complete
well, there you go.
the playground list. Yes. Oh,
I guess I like that idea too, but I wouldn't promote that until in the spring because
all
if
ready.
trails aren't plowed.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a librarian OCD thing. There's the idea of, I don't think, heard of klezmer music? Klezmer actually means music, so you're saying music. So really, you're saying the 6 Mile Trail. So I would just call it 6 Mile Creek North and get the ones that have the word trail after it. You don't need, because it would then say Tamarack like trail. Like I said, that's my OCD talking.
yep.
Or you gotta add trail to all of them.
Absolutely. There's a consistency need there.
OCD wins again.
Nothing is ever simple, is it?
Alyssa, have we done what you wanted to? Are we
She wants to.
accomplishing what you want?
This is a great discussion. I enjoy this. This is what we're looking for always, because, you know, we're only seeing it on this side of the dais. We're never seeing it from out in the community always. So this is exactly what we're looking for, is to figure out some of these bugs in some of these names, or to tell us this doesn't work, this does work. And just giving us feedback is perfect. So I guess for us, just trying to think about moving forward, are there any trails that we wish we'd change the names to? Are we on the right track? Is this something we'd want to recommend to the Parks and Recreation Committee? How is the committee feeling overall with this list of names? Minus the bugs that we've kind of already talked about with some consistent language.
Definitely on the right track.
I very much appreciate that these are going to be promoted in the same way the parks are promoted, with the same types of information and accessibility online and elsewhere.
So what's the timetable on this now? Will this come back to us, or is this it? This our one opportunity?
You know, I think from our perspective, we would bring this to the Parks and Recreation Committee for that next review, and bar any concerns from them, it just moves forward, and we don't necessarily need to discuss this again.
Okay.
I think the next phase for us, assuming there's no questions on the naming, is to really start building out some of these park marketing ideas that we've just discussed today. And I think when we look at some signage and recommendations for, you know, the reason that we did our park audit, or our trail audit, my apologies, is looking at where some of those needs when it comes to our benches, lighting, other amenities that come into our park. So I think that would be the real next step for us, is the infrastructure, the facility side when it comes to these.
So there is a follow-up for the park and rec, like there's places on the trails I walked where the sidewalks are broken up and so forth, they need to be repaired. That's in the next phase as well.
Yeah, and that's part of our public works maintenance plan. They're continuously going out there and making adjustments and fixing things as they are looking at them or as complaints come in. not necessarily a Parks and Recreation Committee review. That's more of just a health and wellness safety. So if the Public Works team notices something, sees something, they're gonna go out and fix it.
Would it be possible, talking about the trails, when the new fall or the winter booklet comes out, would you have gotten the information back from Public Works about which trails are plowed first? And I know a lot of times that's dependent about how much the snowfall is, but for a person who walks a lot, you know, might
You're
have,
asking if there's a start?
yes. Or I'm sure there are only, maybe only certain trails that
Yeah,
are
which way they
plowed.
navigate.
Yeah, which order, or these trails are maintained throughout the winter.
Yeah, great question. I anticipate we are getting this from GIS before the next snowfall, just because our Public Works team uses this on an operation level, knowing where they need to plow on our trail network just as much as our road network. So I anticipate this coming to us soon, if not within the next couple of days or so, just because this is a need and we are in November at this point.
Do you happen to know if sidewalks are plowed before trails? Because that sidewalk that goes on, is that 82nd that you can walk from Deer Run up to the rec center? I would imagine sidewalks maybe are done before trails, or?
I don't have that answer
Okay.
right in front of me on what, I know the priority is obviously downtown and our roads, and then from there, when it comes to trails and sidewalks, I couldn't tell you.
Anything else?
Are we feeling comfortable with this list minus the couple recommendations of changes that we discussed?
Really good, thank you.
Thank you all.
Go. We'll move on then to new business, the senior resource webpage and packet review, and Melissa's back on the stage.
I am. So I guess this is kind of new / old business, right? We've gone through this a couple of times now. But for those new in their room, we as a committee have, one of the first things this committee did actually was try and pull together resources that are out there in the community, statewide, digitally to everybody, related to senior anything. We have a section on health, we have a section on caregiving, legal, finance, anything under the sun. We are trying to bring all resources together within the area, and have a consistent booklet and guide that people can utilize if they're looking for something. Because as we know, it is really hard to really find what resources can be used. They're out there, but it's really difficult to find them. So this was really the first project to identify what those resources are and put them in a booklet that people can take home with them. We have printed copies downstairs at City Hall. We also have them at the rec center. And then we also have the senior resource page on our city's website, which you can see the digital copy of the book, but we also have some like key resources that people can find on that page. And I'll just open that up since we're here. So there's the senior resource guide, which can be printed. We also include some recreational opportunities. I'm going to quickly touch on that. I think it was earlier this year, the committee recommended that the Parks and Recreation program highlight 55 plus types of programs, and we created a table of contents that appears now in all of our Parks and Recreation brochures. So we also wanted to promote that here as well, that there are recreational opportunities available, and this is how you find them if you stumble across this page. And then obviously, we're always looking for new members, so we're keeping that up there too. But as I go below, we just wanted to include some more helpful links for people to use. These are all in the guide, but some of these are more hot topic, or we find more people utilizing them, so we wanted to include them on here.
In looking through this, and I don't know if that's the most this is the most recent one.
That's 21, isn't it?
Oh, well, anyway, maybe it's been updated, but, well, is there anywhere in the new booklet with the email or the web page, like www.victoria it's not in this one. I mean, if people, I mean, because the website really has a lot of information. You've got the City of Victoria phone number, but maybe under Deb, could she, that's the rec center, but I mean,
You are totally correct. We do not have the City of Victoria's information in here at all. That is a big miss.
Yeah.
okay.
This is the reason that we have these meetings, because staff, we just know that information. So thanks for pointing that out. We will include that. So that kind of brings up the topic of today's discussion is annually we like to review this document and the webpage to ensure that all these phone numbers, all these website addresses, all these email addresses, one, are correct, but two, some of these resources may not be available anymore. So making sure that they are still available, and then also we might be missing some. There might be some that have come that we haven't heard of yet or haven't seen, so making sure those get included as well. So the thought process, what we've done historically is staff has just taken this document and made those changes and bring it back to the committee. But I know through the walking audit discussions and just this whole program, there's a lot more desire to have hands-on when it comes to these things. So I wanted to bring this to the committee to see if the committee wanted to assist or kind of take charge in revising this document with staff's addition or staff's assistance, or staff can do what we've done historically and make those changes and then bring it back to the committee for final pass through.
So, just to rephrase that, so the question is, do you want me to do the work or you do the work? This one's me.
Yes. Yes.
I think this is why you have staff. I don't think having us, like, I'll do pages 3 to 7, makes a lot of sense. So I would have you do it and then maybe bring back, here's the list of changes we made that are major, not, this phone number was incorrect or this. And I think it's our job is to look through it and see what's missing, things that we know that have come about in the past couple of years that we would suggest as additions.
I agree with Patrick. I think your staff is going to be much more on top of things that may no longer be available, top of things that are now available. I would personally appreciate you bringing back to us what the changes are that are major.
That is something we can definitely do. There's no reason to change the process, so we'll continue as we've historically done, and we'll bring things back. But if you do notice things, if you've heard from neighbors, friends that there are new resources, keep this booklet at top of mind. And it doesn't have to be just now, too, or at the end of the season. We can include these, because it is a digital copy. It can be continuously living, and we can make changes as they come up. I think Trellis and Carver County reviewed the document earlier this spring, and they had some recommendations, so we were able to incorporate that right away. So just keep that in top of mind when you're hearing about things that are going on in the community or resources when they've come available.
Well, if we know of something, like I think Encore, the daycare in Laconia closed.
Yep.
But on page 5, you've got the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. And I haven't looked real good, but there's an Alzheimer's Association for Minnesota and the Dakotas. To me, that would be more advantageous. Foundation sounds than or maybe include that as well as the Alzheimer's Foundation of America.
Go back to the topics page, Alyssa. There was 2 Alzheimer's Foundation listings on there.
Were there?
Yes, the Alzheimer's Association. Now, is that the one you're referring to, Sue?
I was on page 5. It said Alzheimer's Foundation of America, the hotline. But I don't know if that 800 number, we might want to check if that's the general Alzheimer's. I don't know what the difference between that one on page 2 is, and then the Alzheimer's Foundation of America on page 5. I don't know what the difference of those two is. There are. But I would definitely, the one in that services Minnesota, North and South Dakota, is very helpful for resources in our area.
Perfect. I've got it written down.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do have one other thing. Okay, so, under transportation, I know the council was they made a recommendation possibly, or they were thinking of maybe doing some revisions with Southwest Transit. And in looking into some of that, you've got like Southwest Prime listed. They now really break it down into 4 or 5 different programs, and I wasn't aware of it until I really looked into Southwest Transit. So if they are continuing, that to me was very helpful to know, like Southwest Prime or for the medical or, whatever, to break down what each one of their services are.
That we can do as well.
Can you scroll down a little bit?
Of course.
I don't have it in front of me. Is there, and again, I know we're trying to keep this local, but I see some state things. Is there one, I don't see under V for vision impairment, anything? Because there's like, or is it someplace else in the document?
I don't think we have anything related to vision impairment.
I know when I used to work at Hennepin and run the at-home services, we'd often get people, there's some great state services for the blind. Actually, there's the library for the blind, and then there is vision loss resources in the city of Minneapolis that actually supplies mentors. So I would consider perhaps adding that as a category. That is something that I know in my work that often seniors come up against.
What was the organization that's in Minneapolis?
Vision loss resources.
Vision Loss Resource, thank you.
And Patrick, won't they even deliver free or get you like Braille? I mean, a lot of resources for vision and even hearing impaired books and stuff at no charge.
Yeah, that's the library in Faribault, that's what they do. And then the state has that more hooks people up with services, and then the vision loss resources. The main thing I remember about it, and again, this is, 8 years ago, is they had a mentor program, which I just thought was amazing. So yeah, please really consider adding vision loss as a category. And of course, I'd like to see on the front page, one of these moved out and the Victoria Library put in, but.
Do you want your picture in there
Poison
too?
control doesn't need to be there. Everyone has that on their cell phone.
You want bigger print too?
Well, I was going to ask about that. Is this
Highlighted.
is this 12 point or 14?
I believe this is 12.
Yeah. I know you
I
don't
think
want to
the-
do a large print version of it, and I assume that it is, that with the contrast and everything, it's ADA compliant?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. Thanks, good suggestions. We should all scroll through it and highlight items.
So is this an updated, like with phone numbers and everything?
This is updated as of December 2022 for the 2023 year. So we'll go through and make some changes on our end, see if all these phone numbers work, website links work, resources are still available, and then we'll bring this back probably December, our December meeting, with red line changes, and then we'll go through them together as a committee and see if there's anything else we want to add or remove or anything in between before we push out the 2024 copy.
It's a big,
I was joking at first, but now I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I really think the library should be in here because we're such a resource for people who don't have computers.
I did add that to my list, Patrick. Yes.
But you have to remove one though. There's not physically room to put another one without removing something.
They'll figure it
Well, you'll figure.
We'll make a suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
we'll move on then to other business. And anybody have any topics they would like to bring for other business?
Our trail reports are due when? Don't say last week.
We did have a tentative deadline of the end of the month, October. However,
Of October.
yeah, however, whenever you get them to us, that's
I'm
fine.
doing them tomorrow. We had a deluge of rain one time, and then a deluge of work another time.
Absolutely fine. Since we're just getting with the names yet, we haven't quite marketed them, and as I just mentioned, that we'll go through some of the audit results and kind of point out what areas need what, so we still have plenty
I
of
have it on my
time.
calendar tomorrow, because I'm working here, so I will do it tomorrow.
No rain then. It's supposed to be nice this week.
I did find that shredding event is this Saturday, November 11th, from 9 till 11 o'clock in the St. Victoria Catholic Church parking lot.
Okay.
I mean, anybody can just drop stuff off?
And you said they'll have it,
Nice.
You if possible
Yeah, they
to
shred it, right?
bring us some
Right,
kind
do
of
it.
perishable thing to donate.
Yes, you can bring perishable food items for two.
Melissa, could you give us a quick overview of the December meeting? What the main topics would be in January?
Great question.
You know that now, or do you?
I don't have the exact agenda items off the top of my mind. However, just as we've discussed, I think next for us is to review what we just talked about, the senior resource guide. I think that's a priority, and depending on how long we think that might take, we could also include the results of the trail audit. Go through some of the suggestions that were made as part of this. So I think those would be the two top items. So, and then another note, you know, historically around this time, we've started looking at the 2024 work plan. I think we were a little early. City Council has now changed their schedule to adopt the work plan as the start of the committee year, which is in April. So we'll look into that probably closer to February for us, February, March, to really identify where we are in this year's work plan, and then what we want to include for next year's work plan. Just making sure that we're all on the same page for that one. We're not missing anything.
On December 4th, I suggest we do an intergenerational event, since I have to be here and do story time. So we do story time in the meeting at 10:30, no, probably not. So I won't be here in December. I'll be here for like the first 15 minutes, then I gotta go do story time.
And the January meeting would be on the 8th?
It would be on the 8th. Let me see.
Okay,
December's the 4th.
It would be on the 8th.
on the 8th.
I had a friend today at pickleball ask me, she saw in the at the rec center about senior advisory committee openings or she said I can fill out an application online. Should I invite her to a meeting, or do we want members now, or should she wait until the new term?
You know, I think we're always looking for members.
Okay.
So she is more than welcome to fill out an application. And then if she wants to come to a meeting, that's up to her. As we look at Richard and Sharon, you both participate in a meeting just to get an understanding of what it's about. So some people prefer that,
Yeah.
but not everyone has to. That's not a requirement whatsoever. It just gives them a little taste of what they're walking into.
Okay.
Happy to have them join.
Good. I think we're ready for a motion to adjourn. Would somebody like to make that?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Susan moves. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Nancy. All those in favor say aye.
Right.
Any opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.
Remember to vote.